Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Cabinet Vision Guy. In today's episode we're going to be continuing our series on JavaScript, and we're going to add a little bit more intelligence to our UCS that adds side fillers to standard base assemblies. So currently, if I look at our UCS and take a look, what I've done is I've just copied it over and I'll be sharing a version for each episode that we do with a little bit more intelligence to it. So in our current UCS, what we've got, if I look at the apply conditions, the fillers are actually being applied to the cabinet level. And if I just return down and take a look at 3D and into my object tree, you'll see that the fillers belong to the base assembly itself. And currently the height of the filler is defined by the base assembly, which is great if I don't want to do something like extend my end panels. So if I just go into adjust parts and add a little bit more size onto the length of the end, you'll see that what it hasn't done is extend the filler up to the top, which is something you probably want to do. So what we want to do is we want to add a little bit more intelligence to the UCS, and we want to add a relationship between the left end on this cabinet and the left filler, and the right end and the right filler. I'm just going to keep this simple and concentrate on unfinished ends for the moment. So what I'm going to do is just make sure if I head in here, I've got an unfinished end selected on the left and right hand side. Perfect. So I'm going to head up into, I think I'll go into my UCS first and take a look at what we need to do. So there's a couple of ways of doing this, but I'm going to try a slightly different approach. What we could do is hard code down here for the length. We could hard code the path to the length, and I'll just grab it from the object tree to show you what that would look like of the end panel. So probably something like this. So we could just hard code this in here. But what I want to do is later on in the series we want to start managing connections between the end panel and the filler itself. So we're going to actually need to start making modifications to the end panel, not just reference the size of it. So we're going to handle this in a slightly different way and take advantage of some of the new features that JavaScript brings. So I'm just going to set this to 0 for a second. So I'm going to create myself a little bit of space around here. And what you can see is up at the top, I've just dimmed out for us a left end and set it to be null, and a right end and set it to be null as well. And what we're going to do in this UCS is we're going to get the object for the left end, and we're going to get the object for the right end as well. And then we're going to reference the size down here. We're going to check and see and make sure they're not null, so just in case we've got a finished end or a different end panel type. And then we're going to reference the size down here. So what I need to do to get the end panel from the case, I need to use a JavaScript method, and I'm going to head out of here for a second and just open the help file up. And I'm going to search for JavaScript. Make sure I can spell. And just take a look at the object model to start us off with. And what I want to do is just take a look down here and look at some of the methods that I can use. And what I need to do is I need to find an assembly. So I'm going to copy this one out, and I'm going to grab this from here and just go back to my UCS. And what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to copy it down here and just create us a little bit of space to work for a second. So I can remove this and I can remove results. So what I want to do is I want to get my left end to start with. So I want my left end to equal this, which is the cabinet level, and then I want to find an assembly, and then what I need to do is I need to grab the path to my unfinished end panel. So if I just close this out for a second, and I can do that from the object tree. So I've just navigated down. If you go to the cab and then case and then LU, you can grab this and I'm just going to copy this out and back into my UCS, and I'm going to paste this in here. So that should get me my left unfinished end, and then what I'm going to do underneath this, because this one represents my left filler and this one is my right filler, I'm going to copy this block of code down here, and I'm going to change this to a right unfinished end, and I'm going to do a right end here. Now when I run this code, I'm not going to notice any changes at the moment. All I'm doing by having these two separate pieces of code is I'm just getting the objects themselves so I can start to either reference them or manipulate them. What I'd like to do is just include an if statement to check if the object is not null. So I'm going to start off and then close this off. Apologies, I'm typing with one hand, so a little bit slow. And then down here, and then I just need to indent it with a tab. And I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to copy this down here as well. And eventually what we're going to do is add a little bit more logic in to cope with different end panel types, but also add some logic in to produce an error message if we don't have an end panel that's found. So currently if I'm getting my left end and I don't find an object for it, it's going to return me null. Then what I'm doing with my if statement is I'm checking that left end doesn't equal null. If it doesn't, I'm then going to add my filler. So now with when I'm adding fillers, they'll only be added if I've got an unfinished end present on either the left hand or the right hand side. And then I'm just repeating that code down here for the right unfinished end. So hopefully when I close this, I won't get an error message telling me I've made a mistake. Possibly. Yeah, I'm missing the length, but I don't get an error message. That's just because I didn't put anything in to reference the length of the filler. So what I can now do is I'm going to go back to my UCS, and under code, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this out, and I'm going to grab my left end, and then what I can do is, just like every other object in CV, I can access the properties just by using a full stop, and I'm going to reference the dy. I can then do the same for the right end, so I'm going to grab the right end here and take out the length. So now we're referencing the lengths of the end panels. What we also want to do is reference the Y position as well. So if we move the Y up and down, it'll also move the filler. So I'm going to copy this out and just reference the Y and do the same here. And if I just close this down and take a look at how this behaves now. Perfect. So we should see now that our filler on the left hand side is the same height as our end panel, and obviously the one on the right hand side is as well, because we've got no adjustments. But if I just go back to section view and adjust parts, and if I make that 5, perfect, it's lifted up. Also, if I change my construction method now to one that doesn't run the ends right to the floor, I should see the Y position change. So if I go to properties and construction, I'm going to choose a kitchen construction, just trying to pick something that's going to lift up the plinth for us. I think this one should do it. There we go. So you can see now I've actually got feet on this assembly and a plinth, and I've gone for, I think it's probably about a 150mm plinth or toe height in there, and my end panel's lifted up, and obviously because I've got a relationship between my filler and my end Y position, my filler's also lifted up as well. Hopefully you found this episode useful. If you can give us a like, share and subscribe. We're also on Facebook, that's facebook.com/thecabinetvisionguy, and instagram.com/thecabinetvisionguy as well. Cheers!